understand how powerfully racist that question is, can you? Because you could never ask a white author, when are you going to write about black people? Whether he did or not, or she did or not. Even the inquiry comes from a position of being in the center.
And being used to being in the center.
And being used to being in the center. And saying, you know, is it ever possible that you will enter the mainstream? It's inconceivable that where I already am is the mainstream.
They looked at just 12 southern states between 1877 to 1950. Turns out there were 3,959 victims of what they call racial terror lynchings.
My name is Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola to try to register to become first-class citizens.
I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators.
Slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma.
In my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
What the gay rights ordinance in San Francisco, the main focus is to prevent the people who are already employed, who are gay, who, if they want to come out and break down the stereotypes, prevents them from being fired.
I am not calling the gentleman, Mr. Meadows, a racist for doing so. I'm saying that in itself, it is a racist act.
Is this the land of the free and the home of the brave? No. Is this a land with liberty and justice for all? No. Is this one nation, indivisible, under God? No. Either let us practice the democracy we are preaching, or shut up.
Well, there's no single simple meaning of the term revolutionary. A revolutionary is a man or a woman who is a lot of things, but basically the revolutionary wants to change the nature of society in a way to promote a world where the needs and interests of the people are responded to.
It doesn't take much to look on the local news every night and see how many black kids, black boys, black men are being killed with these stand-your-ground defenses that these people raise. Then they get off. I am a mother, too. And I have a son. And I care as much for my son as y'all care for y'all's. But my son doesn't walk the same path as yours does.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation.
Every incident that have been tipped off in this country in the last 2 years up north have been tipped off by uniformed police. Now, I'm not saying the police is right or wrong. I'm saying when you have these incidents that's tipped off with this one symbol, then we should look into it and see what it is. When 22 million people, be they black or white, start hollering police brutality, then it's time to start listening to 22 million people and going in. A lot of people say, well, it's not police brutality. Police brutality is not when a cop necessarily knocks me upside the head. It's when a cop calls me nigger when he's making the arrest. It's when he handles me wrongly in every process of processing the arrest. This is a form of police brutality.
America's not unique in its sins as a country. We're not unique in our evils. I think where we may be singular is our refusal to acknowledge them. And the legends and myths we tell about our inherent, goodness to hide and cover and conceal so that we can maintain a kind of willful ignorance that protects our innocence. I've had the privilege of growing up in a tradition that didn't believe in the myths and the legends because we had to bear the brunt of them.
Republicans in February blocked Senator Bernie Sanders' bill to provide $21 billion in medical and other benefits for veterans.
When our men and women come home from war, some wounded in body, some wounded in spirit, I don't want to hear people telling me it's too expensive to take care of those wounded veterans. I don't accept that. If you think it's too expensive to take care of veterans, don't send them to war.
Back in 1998, a black man, James Byrd Jr., accepted a ride from 3 white men. Instead of taking him home, they drove him down a remote Jasper County road, beat him and dragged him for 3 miles behind their pickup truck.
I am, I think, quite disgusted, really, to be honest, that as Muslim legislators, we are constantly being asked to waste our time speaking to issues that other people are not asked to speak to, because the assumption exists is that we somehow support and are for, right? No, there is an assumption. So I want to make sure that the next time someone is in an audience and is looking at me and Rashida and Abdul and Sam, that they ask us the proper questions that they will probably ask any member of Congress.
I think the only thing that's really changed is the black woman.
If I love you, I can't lie to you.
Of course you can lie to me, and you will. If you love me and you're going off with Maddie someplace, you're lying to me. Because what the hell do I care about the truth? I care if you're there. What Billie Holiday say, hush now, don't explain.
All right, I accept that.
Of course you'll lie to me, because I don't even want to care. What does the truth matter? And why are you going to be truthful with me when you lie to everybody else? You lied when you smiled at that cracker down the job, right? Lie to me, smile. Treat me the same way you would treat him.
I can't treat you the way I treat him.
You must. Because I've caught the frowns and the anger. He's happy with you. Of course he doesn't know you're unhappy. You grin at him all day long. You come home and I catch hell. Because I love you, I get least of you. I get the very minimum. And I'm saying, fake it with me. Is that too much of the black woman to ask of the black man? For 10 years, so that we can get a child on his feet that says, yeah, father smiled at mother. He talked to me about school today.
How many bales of cotton have you picked? How many beatings have you taken? He couldn't say nothing.
Earlier today, we heard the beginning of the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. We the people. It's a very eloquent beginning. But when that document was completed on the 17th of September in 1787, I was not included in that we the people. I felt somehow for many years that George Washington and Alexander Hamilton just left me out by mistake. But through the process of amendment, interpretation, and court decision, I have finally been included in we the people.
A boy last week, he was 16 in San Francisco, told me on television. Thank God we got him to talk. Maybe somebody will start to listen. He said, I got no country, I've got no flag. Now he's only 16 years old. And I couldn't say you do. I don't have any evidence to prove that he does. They were tearing down his house. We're talking about human beings. There's not such a thing as a monolithic wall or, some abstraction called the Negro problem. These Negro boys and girls who at 16 and 17 don't believe the country means anything that it says and don't feel they have any place here on the basis of the performance of the entire country.
Well, now, Jim...
No, am I exaggerating?
No, I certainly could not say that you're exaggerating.
My name is Legacy Garner, the daughter of Drew Miller and my dad, Eric Garner. No justice, no peace.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Make sure y'all can hear me. I'm pretty sure you can. I wanted to go live. I mean, I'm gonna go live later, but I wanted to go live early. I saw a video that I think it properly articulates my frustration and my anger from Crystal Ball. I was just gonna show the video without like coming on live, but I don't want to do that just because I don't know. I think y'all should kind of understand. It's a couple of videos that I want to show, but you know what I'm saying, before we go any further, why don't y'all go ahead and follow me, subscribe, like the page, hit the notification bell, share this video. We're trying to get it out to as many people as possible, trying to grow the channel. So like the page, subscribe to the page, follow us, and do all that stuff that you need to do. Like I mentioned to y'all before, my kitty cat was sick. Now he's doing a lot better. Come here, Malcolm. Malcolm. He's looking out the window, but here he is. Look at him. Look at everybody. Look at everybody. Look, can you see him? Say meow, 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 meow. But he's doing a lot better. He wasn't even moving at first. Now he's climbing on stuff, knocking shit over. So I'm happy about that. Anyway, but I've been having conversations with my family and everything, and just talking about and I think black people had this had this problem with the DNC and Democrats in general. They kind of feel like we owe them their vote, like they can come and they can lie to us and they can just pander to us, and then we're supposed to vote. Like it's our obligation to vote for them, and it's not. You got to earn our vote. And to think that you guys can bully somebody in, and all of a sudden, because you say vote blue no matter who, that we just supposed to fall in line and you ultimately get what you want. Well, that's out. No one's doing that anymore. And Crystal Ball was spoke on it yesterday, and I thought it was what she said, I thought parallels everything that I've been thinking since Tuesday. Everything I've been thinking since Super Tuesday, since they coalesced around Joe Biden. And then Tucker Carlson, he's Fox, excuse me, he's a Fox anchor. And I don't agree with damn near everything he said, but he said something that kind of caught my attention. And the only reason that I knew about it was because Crystal Ball on the Hill show, they mentioned it. And I was like, and I went to look at it, and I was like, man, I mean, his attitude towards Bernie is what it is. His language, I don't agree with much, and the majority of his criticism, but I think I agree with enough of what he was saying that I thought it was beneficial to show. And you guys can, feel how you feel about it. You can tell me how you feel, but there's a lot of things to think about when we think about how do we move forward, and just the DNC's place and the arrogance of the idea that they feel that we're just going to vote Biden because we hate Trump so much. It's a whole lot of people in my life that I've come across in my life that I hate, that I dislike, and it didn't allow me to be with another friend that I didn't like as much. You know what I'm saying? I didn't grab, let me go over here with this friend that I can barely stand, but I can stand them more than that. Nah, I ain't deal with none of them. And so I'm not going to be on too long. I'm going to go live later on, but I want you guys to see these couple videos and, y'all can see how you think about where we are in this democratic situation.
Matter what.
Yeah.
And by engaging in this whole unity thing, and of course, from the beginning, of course, we're going to vote for the nominee, no matter who it is, you've just stripped yourself of power, of leverage, of being able to say, no, we're going to see who the nominee is. We're going to see if they support our values, if they're worth earning our vote. And the moment you take that off the table is the moment that they can just take you for granted.
Of course they can. They can take you for granted, but like you said, they always have to go to the squishy, moderates who allegedly will vote for whomever. By the way, they were going to vote for whoever had a D next to their name in 2020. There's just no question of that. And look, what Bernie has done is neutral. All right, Crystal, what's on your radar?
Well, the results are in, and as expected, a very rough night for Bernie Sanders. Now, look, there's still a debate this weekend in which voters are going to have to be reminded just how risky a choice Biden is. But we have to be honest, barring something truly massive, the path for Bernie is nearly closed. First of all, let me say this, especially for those of you who never really cared about politics until you were activated by the Sanders movement. The amount of progress that has been made on mainstreaming social democratic ideas is truly shocking. Every single exit poll has shown Medicare for all to be popular, to be very popular. Every candidate has been forced to come up with a plan for improving our expensive, disastrous, immoral healthcare system. $15 minimum wage, it's now the standard ask. Thanks to new young leaders, an entire movement for a Green New Deal has emerged. These gains are real. Half of politics is simply framing the debate and then fighting on your turf. In a normal year with a normal president as opposition, it actually might have worked out. Voters say that healthcare is their number one issue, and they say Bernie is their number one choice on that issue. But with Donald Trump as president, electability has trumped all. And electability is so squishy and amorphous that establishment media was able to fully define it for voters and then dictate to them who they must vote for. But if half of politics is framing the debate, the other half is actual power. And on that metric, the left has a long way to go. Leftists have been in the wilderness of American politics for decades, shunned, smeared, irrelevant. That's no longer the case. But in terms of building out an actual electoral strategy, infrastructure, and policy chops, there is a whole lot of work to be done. We're going to be having those conversations about how to build in the days and weeks to come. But I will tell you this for sure. I will never allow myself to be put in a situation where my only two real presidential choices are basically shoot me or stab me. I can promise you I will do everything in my power to make sure we are never left in that situation again. So let's focus on the here and now. The Democratic establishment and its media allies, faced with their imminent demise, were able to throw everything behind their candidate of choice. Joe Biden is an empty vessel into which they can pour all of their corporatist aspirations. All the pigs that feast at the government trough will continue to be fed. All the same banksters will run the show. Fine. Y'all have made your choice of a fading old man who stands in opposition to all of the things that young people and working class people have told you matter to them. As friend of the show, Emma Vigeland tweeted, under a Biden presidency, in the unlikely event that he's able to defeat Trump, there will be no Medicare for all, no Green New Deal, no tuition-free college, no student loan forgiveness, no legal marijuana, no wealth tax, no end of the wars, no trade reform. In case you had any doubts, here is Joe Biden telling Lawrence O'Donnell he would say screw you to the entire Democratic Party, not to mention the working class, by vetoing Medicare for all, which again was popular in every single state that's voted so far.
And let's flash forward. Your president, Bernie Sanders, is still active in the Senate. He manages to get Medicare for all through the Senate in some compromised version, the Elizabeth Warren version or other version. Nancy Pelosi gets a version of it through the House of Representatives. It comes to your desk. Do you veto it?
I would veto anything that delays providing the security and the certainty of health care being available now. If they got that through and by some miracle, there was an epiphany that occurred, and some miracle occurred that said, okay, it's passed, then you got to look at the cost. I want to know, how did they find the $35 trillion? What is that doing? Is it going to significantly raise taxes on the middle class, which it will? What's going to happen? Look, my opposition isn't to the principle that you should have Medicare. I mean, everybody, health care should be a right in America. My opposition relates to whether or not, A, it's doable, two, what the cost is, and what the consequences for the rest of the budget are. How are you going to find $35 trillion over the next 10 years?
He is trashing Medicare for all during an actual pandemic. Look, Fat, Joe can say what he wants, and party leaders in the media can line up behind whoever they want. But you're not going to tell me or anyone else that we now have to vote for that person. Voters don't owe you anything. You're not entitled to their vote. It's not the way this thing works. You have to actually earn it. It's so clear now that the whole vote blue no matter who line is a total con job designed to quash any dissent so that they can fully shove any neoliberal corporatist nonsense down our throats, whether it's Jamie Dimon or trashing Medicare for all or standard issue warmongering foreign policy. We're supposed to just accept it all because at least it's not Donald Trump. The responsibility is placed wholly on the voters to suck it up and vote Joe. I'm not buying it. If the choice is Donald Trump or Joe Biden, you can mark me down as officially undecided. Now, look, I'm never going to vote for Donald Trump, but I'm not sure at this point under these circumstances that I can vote for a Joe Kamala ticket or whatever ends up being on offer. I know how mad people are going to be to hear that, how many ugly comments I'm going to get on Twitter, which is weird since I thought only Bernie people posted mean Twitter comments. But honestly, I don't care. Because the policies and the critical importance of centering the working class isn't just some branding exercise or cosplay for me. I actually care about it. I'm willing to fight for it. And I also care about power. The moment that we all say, don't worry, Joe, we're all going to back you up, is the moment that the establishment sees they can do whatever they want to us and sell out the working class for all eternity, and we're just going to take it. Think about this. Why do these freaking never-Trumpers and conservative Democrats have so much power? It's because they're constantly threatening to vote for the other team. We have to bend over backwards to keep them from wandering. But the left? No, we can spit in their face, and they've still got to show up because Mitt Romney or Donald Trump or Josh Hawley or whoever is just too bad to contemplate the alternative. And by the way, if the corporatists lose again anyway after we all suck it up and vote Joe, they're still going to blame us. Well, I'm, for one, not in the mood to play along. So if moderate voters are what you need to win, go ahead. Try to win with your moderate voters. Try to win while sticking your middle finger in the face of the Amazon and Walmart and Starbucks workers who sent in their $10 and $20 because they dared to believe in something better. Try to win while smearing the young people organizing for the Green New Deal as toxic. Try to win while insisting that Medicare for all is terrible and any way we can't afford it. Maybe you should talk to some folks about whether they can afford the status quo. Go ahead and try to win without this movement, because most people aren't interested in voting for candidates who treat them like crap and view them with utter contempt. I mean, Sagar, here's the reality. The left is going to get blamed if Joe Biden loses, no matter what.
Yeah.
And by engaging in this whole unity thing, and of course, from the beginning, of course, we're going to vote for the nominee, no matter who it is, you've just stripped yourself of power, of leverage, of being able to say, no, we're going to see who the nominee is. We're going to see if they support our values, if they're worth earning our vote. And the moment you take that off the table is the moment that they can just take you for granted.
Of course they can. They can take you for granted, but like you said, they always have to go to the squishy, moderates who allegedly will vote for whomever. By the way, they were going to vote for whoever had a D next to their name in 2020. There's just no question of that. And look, what Bernie has done is neutralize his own power from the very beginning. He never said, I've got a movement, I've got my people. If you don't give me the nomination, we will riot and burn down the streets in the convention. And, people are uncomfortable with that. But that's how it works. If you want you think the establishment would have coalesced so quickly around Biden if they had that hanging over their head? No way. You think all these things, Tom Perez would have been freaking out. All this stuff about trying to get Joe Biden to sit at the debate. I mean, they put their thumb on the scale over and over again. I actually recommend, maybe we'll play it later in the show. Tucker Carlson had a monologue on this yesterday where, and some people aren't going to hear this. He said Bernie's one of the lamest revolutionaries ever because, and this is the main point that I make.
That's where I'll start right there, and we can go to the next video. But what Crystal Ball laid out is plain and simple, and this is what the Democratic establishment has been saying the whole time. We're just gonna vote blue. We're not going. We're going to manipulate the system. Perception is reality. Period. So even if there was a situation where these people genuinely wanted to endorse Biden, they genuinely thought that Biden would be a good candidate, that still doesn't obligate us to vote for Joe Biden just because it's Joe Biden if he doesn't align with our morals or if he doesn't align with our politics. But that's not the reality. You got Kamala Harris, you got Cory Booker saying during a debate that he wasn't unfit. They talked about his cognitive decline. They talked about his role in opposing bus segregation, bus desegregation. They talked about his role in the crime bill, using that as an argument to say he's not fit in 2020 to run this country. And all of a sudden, they all coalesce around him to vote. That's disingenuous, period, point blank. And even if it's not, it's perceived that way, and perception is reality. So perception is reality to a whole lot of people. So that's what we're rolling with. Is I perceive that they colluded because they hate Bernie Sanders that much. And the reason, like Crystal said, is because he's really going to tax him. They, like I said yesterday, they love Trump's economic plans because they benefit from it, period. They benefit. Everything he's doing, those tax benefits, all these pundits that you see on CNN, MSNBC, they benefit for that. And Biden isn't going to do anything different. Biden says he don't even care that you got 87 million people in America who was either uninsured or underinsured. He said he's going to veto Medicare for all if somehow it miraculously gets through. He's going to veto it. In the middle of a pandemic, he's going to veto it. And like I said yesterday, everybody that's going against Medicare for all of a sudden want to get free testing for coronavirus. And essentially, I'm sure once you start getting a whole lot of people that get it, and then a whole lot of people that's uninsured that get it, they're going to want to get free treatment as well. Where are we going to get the money? But they want it, though. Like I said, socialism only, Medicare only matters. People only care when it affects their home, the people that they love, when it affects them. But if it doesn't affect them, they don't care. They don't give a S. You know what I'm saying? That's just like gun legislation and having common sense gun laws that can prevent someone from getting a gun, that can stop the gun show loophole that doesn't allow people who are gun collectors to be able to sell to anyone without them showing any ID or having a license to sell a gun at a gun show just because they're a so-called gun collector. That's a gun show loophole. So it doesn't matter if 20 children, 5-year-olds from Newtown are killed, or people watching a movie are gunned down, or people at a club are gunned down, or people watching a concert is gunned down. None of that matters because it didn't happen to them. Why do we have such a lack of empathy? Why is our approach to things selfish? It only matters. I only care if it happened to me. And like I said yesterday, I'm not saying this because this is what I think. I've interviewed many people. I've interviewed people from Virginia Tech, from Newtown, from Colorado, from Las Vegas shooting that all said that I started activism, anti-gun activism, after it happened to me. And thank God they did it. And I think it's great. But I also, at the same time, think it's a shame that we have to wait until it happens to us before we take action, as if it only matters if it happens to us. Why can't we care about someone else losing a child? Why do I have to mourn my child? Because it could have been prevented. It could have not happened to someone else's child if we had more people active and activated to go against it. So why does my mother or father have to die from cancer before I say that Medicare should be available? Not just they should have access to it. Access doesn't mean anybody has access to medical care. You know what I'm saying? Access is being able to get on the phone and call somebody or look on the internet to see, oh, I have access to it, but it's going to cost me half of my money. It's going to cost me 50% of what I make outside the 30% that I got to pay for living. Why do we have to wait? Why can't it just be this is what's best for the country as a whole? But anyway, this next video is Tucker Carlson kind of summarizing what he feels about Bernie Sanders. Like I said, I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with how harsh he is, but the sentiment, I understand. And, you guys tell me what you think of it.
Well, you just saw the numbers. It looks like tonight could be Bernie Sanders' last stand. As of tomorrow morning, fully half the delegates in the Democratic race will have been awarded. If Sanders suffers a lopsided defeat in the next few hours, his path to the nomination will essentially disappear. If that happens, millions of Bernie supporters will wake up in the morning outraged and disappointed. They'll believe Sanders had the nomination stolen from him by a ruthless Democratic establishment fearful of change. And to some extent, they'll be right. But there's another important reason that Bernie Sanders appears to be losing tonight. He's weak. Yes, Sanders is a socialist bomb thrower who praises Fidel Castro, but it's mostly talk in the end. Underneath it all, Bernie Sanders may be the lamest revolutionary ever. Twice in a row, Sanders has tried to win the Democratic presidential nomination. Twice in a row, party insiders have worked to rig the game against him. In 2016, leaked emails showed Democratic officials openly rooting for Hillary Clinton, his opponent. The party scheduled the primary debates that year in a way they thought would hurt Sanders. The DNC even entered into a joint fundraising agreement with his opponent, the Clinton campaign. Remarkable. The Democratic Party did far more to subvert the democratic process 4 years ago than Vladimir Putin even attempted to do. Sanders was never going to win. When he finally did lose, Sanders did not even complain about it. He dutifully showed up at the Democratic convention and endorsed Hillary Clinton. When the extent of her treachery became clear in those leaked emails, Sanders still campaigned for her, like the obedient little party hack he is. But Hillary was not even grateful for it. She bashes Sanders extensively in a new documentary, and not just his policies, she goes after him personally, claiming nobody likes him. So what did Sanders learn from all of this? Not a single thing. A week ago, the entire Democratic Party coalesced with stunning speed around Joe Biden. You're watching the results tonight. It's not as if the establishment actually prefers Biden, who is frail and rapidly moving toward incapacitated. They just despise Bernie Sanders and were desperate to stop him. They'd pick anybody, and they did, and it worked. Sanders got crushed on Super Tuesday. A candidate who actually wanted to win would have paused the day after to reassess his campaign. For Sanders, this week was the time to tell the truth about what is happening, what we're all watching. The Democratic nominating system is rotten and corrupt. Biden himself clearly is not capable of governing this country. He's not even capable of holding a press conference. The whole process is shocking. It's a fraud, not to mention incredibly cynical and reckless. The establishment doesn't care who the president is. They just want to make certain it's someone they can control who won't raise their taxes. Sanders could have said all that, and he should have, because it's true. Instead, he defended Joe Biden. Watch.
And the question of Joe Biden's mental acuity is not something that just comes up anywhere. Democrats have brought this up, including Senator Cory Booker, who endorsed Joe Biden today.
I'm not going to go at that level in attacking. Joe and I have, that's for people to decide. All I can say is Joe and I have very significant political differences. And I'm not going to be making, personal attacks on Joe. That's not what I do.
Okay. So according to Bernie Sanders, we're not allowed to talk about the one thing all of us can see clearly every day. The Democratic frontrunner is failing. He's not capable of taking the job he's running for. His staff is desperate to keep him from interacting with the public for more than 2 minutes. By the way, that's not a partisan talking point. It's true. It's an observation that everyone who pays attention has. And it's sad, really sad, more poignant than damning, sincerely. But Sanders won't say any of this. Shut up, he says. Any mention of Biden's rapidly declining communication skills is a, quote, personal attack. It's pretty obvious that Sanders doesn't want to win. He's a man who thinks it's more noble to fail than to succeed. You're watching a professional loser. Sanders is all but admitting that now. He's already promised to back Biden if Biden wins the nomination. He's even pledged not to contest the convention if Biden falls short of a delegate majority. Watch.
If at the end of the day, it turns out that Vice President Biden is going to have more delegates than you do heading into the convention, will you drop out?
Of course, he'll drop out. He will win. I mean, we'll run through, I suspect we will run through the process. I think people have a right to vote. But if Biden walks into the convention or at the end of the process has more votes than me, he's the winner.
And that's true whether or not he has a majority or just a plurality.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, says Bernie Sanders. Absolutely. It's pathetic, actually. Real revolutionaries go to the wall for what they believe. Bernie Sanders won't even go to the convention because that's who Bernie Sanders is, and that's who he has always been. Back in 2015, at a rally in Seattle, 2 demonstrators took the mic from Sanders while he was trying to speak. Rather than take back his own podium, Sanders stood meekly aside like a scolded child, and then he called off the event altogether without even finishing his speech. Imagine doing that yourself. Imagine how much self-loathing you would have. Would your kids even look at you in the face? Probably not. But he kept doing it. Less than 2 months ago, one of Sanders' supporters did what he wouldn't do. She told the truth about Joe Biden. She called him corrupt, and she did it for a reason. For decades, Biden was a paid lackey of the credit card companies. But Sanders wouldn't play along. He apologized for what his surrogate said, and then he claimed Joe Biden was ethically pure. Sanders attacked his own surrogate for telling the truth. So what did Sanders get in return for doing that? Well, more attacks, of course. You could have guessed it. His opponents continued to denounce him and his supporters as sexists and bullies and losers. And they're still doing it tonight, and they'll keep it up unto the generations. Because personal attacks are what they do best. Where's Bernie in this? Secretly enjoying it all. Losing proves he's ideologically pure. He wants to. You just feel sorry for his voters. Some of them thought this was a real campaign.
That is Tucker Carlson. He's a anchor on Fox News. So, you know, that obviously the hyperbole and his vitriol in his analysis, I don't agree with. I think what he was referring to in 2016 was the 2 black girls that grabbed the mic. I thought that was great that he allowed them to speak because black people are you know, haven't been heard and they're sick and tired of white people trying to feel like they can speak for them. No, I thought that was great. So I don't agree with that. And there's a lot of things that I don't agree with, but it was a lot of things that I did agree with. And that's why I chose to show that video. Cause as you guys, I don't know if you saw my videos about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I talked about that. I said he needed to lean in on it. Cause I said they're demonizing you. They're calling you a villain. They're calling you an existential threat. You know what I mean? I mean, if they're gonna, like he said, they're gonna continue to do it no matter what you say, because they don't like you, because you are a threat to them. Period. Point blank. I said, lean into it. I said, I would do the same thing. I would be like, no, we'll find out. I'm a contestant. We'll see what happens. It seemed like you guys are cheating, so we're gonna wait and see what happened. I would have leaned into it. Because then they would have been on eggshells. And I mean, this sound like Monday morning quarterbacking, but this is the truth. And I said this. Look, if y'all go back and look at the videos, I mentioned that I felt like Bernie Sanders should not be agreeing. And first, he shouldn't keep saying, we know that you and Joe Biden are friends, man. We don't need to hear that every time you say something. He's my friend, as if you're more preoccupied with your friendship to Biden versus you doing something versus you know your platform and you doing something for this country. Like if Joe Biden stopped being your friend because of an election and what y'all say about each other, then let it be. Then it wasn't that significant because you ain't lying. You just saying exactly what he said. But it almost seemed like half the things that you got that you wasn't even mentioning seemed like y'all made a pact or y'all made an agreement. Okay, we're not gonna talk about this. We're not gonna talk about this. No one brought up him lying about being arrested with Nelson Mandela. No one brought up him lying about being involved in the civil rights movement. No one mentioned the reason why he had to drop out the 1988 presidential election. No one mentioned what he said about Barack Obama during the 2008 elections. As if that was off, like that's not, that shouldn't be off the table. Why he wasn't pushed on that? Only thing he was pushed on is the crime bill. And he keeps talking about, oh, well, the Violence Against Women Act was in the crime bill. Yeah, he took a Republican bill and said, okay, I'm going to sponsor this and then just add this in it. Like they do with any other bills. Put stuff in it so he can seem like he was doing something good. It was a manipulation. I have a video that I'm going to show y'all to show you exactly what he said during that time. And I'm going to contrast it with, this is a video I got on Facebook, and I'm going to contrast it with the video of the same crime bill that Bernie had to say about it.
You must take back the streets. And you take back the streets by more cops, more prisons. I hope this crime bill, when it passes, the Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended once and for all this notion that somehow Democrats are weak on crime. The consensus is A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. We all agree on that. Now we can find some fringe folks and left-wingers in my party who say, no, that's not what we should do. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without any conscience developing, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior, but they are in jail.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this so-called crime prevention bill. Mr. Speaker, let us be honest, this is not a crime prevention bill. This is a punishment bill, a retribution bill, a vengeance bill. All over the industrialized world now, countries are saying, let us put an end to state murder, let us stop capital punishment. But here what we're talking about is more and more capital punishment. What we're discussing now is an issue where some of our friends are saying we're not getting tough enough on the criminals. But my friends, we have the highest percentage of people in America in jail per capita of any industrialized nation on earth. We've beaten South Africa. We've beaten the Soviet Union. What do we have to do? Put half the country behind bars? Mr. Speaker, instead of talking about punishment and vengeance, let us have the courage to talk about the real issue. How do we get to the root causes of crime? How do we stop crime? And Mr. Speaker, I've got a problem. I've got a problem with a president and a Congress which allows 5 million children to go hungry, 2 million people to sleep out on the streets, cities to become breeding grounds for drugs and violence. And they say, we're getting tough on crime. If you want to get tough on crime, let's deal with the causes of crime. Let's demand that every man, woman, and child in this country have a decent opportunity and a decent standard of living. Let's not keep putting poor people into jail and disproportionately punishing blacks.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
That part. That's what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys heard Biden's language, but they have, you can watch this documentary, and it talked about the coded language that they would use to reference black people because Nixon started this where they couldn't say nigga anymore. They couldn't use like overtly racist things. So they would use words like predator or being born out of wedlock to let them know that they're speaking specifically of black people, black children, black adolescents. And that's exactly what Biden said. And that's exactly what he meant when he said predator. That's exactly what Hillary Clinton meant when they said predator. Black predators, black children being born out of wedlock and don't have any guidance or moral standing is what he said. That's exactly what he's talking about. I don't care what nobody say. You can believe what you want that make you feel better for voting for somebody like that. But exactly what he meant was black people, period. Y'all remember, follow us, subscribe, like the page, hit the notification bells, and share this. And this is a video I just did. I'm just on my F Biden S this morning. There's nothing that you can say in reference to Biden that he's done to address any black issues, period, in his history, period.
Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, I'm ashamed that I voted for the 94 crime bill. You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. In fact, I drafted the bill.
Ooh.
You said you were arrested when you were with Mandela. I don't think so.
Joe Biden has recently been telling voters that he was once arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robben Island.
I came back from South Africa trying to see Nelson Mandela and getting arrested.
You say that you were trained to be a protester and suffered. We don't think so.
Like many of you, I participated in sit-ins to desegregate the restaurants and movie houses.
When I was a teenager in Delaware, for real, I got involved in the civil rights movement.
And the New York Times reports, quote, more than once, advisors had gently reminded Mr. Biden of the problem with this formulation. He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
But he never actually marched in the civil rights movement at all.
Will pay any price, bear any burden, accept any challenge, and meet any hardship to secure the blessings of prosperity. We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty. I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote.
The thing about Joe Biden, though, when he gaffes, because we all know he does, you never believe he's lying.
Goddamn pickaninny. You like that? That's your vice president. That's your next vice president of these United States of America. Probably not, though. I'm saying that obviously it's tongue in cheek, but more than likely we will see a repeat of 2016 because, like Crystal said, you have to earn my vote. You like that last video? Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, where the progressives have a voice. And remember, share this, like it, subscribe to the channel so we can grow. The Section Independent, that part.